Paltrocast. Andy, aside from talking to people like me, how's your day going so far?
So far, good. I had my hair cut this morning. There you go. Looked very nice.
I mean, dapper as always. When I think of Andy, I think of dapper, classy, upscale, you know, more more likable than his peers, we could say. So can we keep the compliments coming, or is that the end of it?
Very nice of you. Thank you.
Well, congratulations on the new AMPM record. When did you actually finish
Right.
it?
It was it was delivered to me because it's one of those fascinating project for me, which I wasn't directly involved with every stage of the production. So Phil sent over various mixes, and then Mike Boddy, who's our engineer, producer, contributor, Mike put the sort of finishing touches. He said, "Take it away and you mix it," um, and mastered it, and there we were. So yeah, I heard it sort of as it got sent to me as a link, and I've heard bits of it as we were going along, and some of it I recognized from a few years back when we were actually doing it, and some I did more recently. So, but it was something of a pleasure to sort of get it presented without all of those stages that we used to have in the studio of nights of working on the same song till you get bored with it.
Right. Was a lot of it done in Phil's studio?
No, I mean, most of it was done in our sort of home studios. I worked, I wasn't living in London during lockdown. I was in on the coast about 50 miles away in Brighton. And I had a laptop and a small back room that I used for working in with just with a Wurlitzer in it and a laptop and a couple of speakers and my saxes. So I just play straight into the Mac built-in mics, actually, which worked pretty well. Um, and yeah, so then we didn't really go into a studio until this year. After we'd done the Roxy tour last year, we thought
Mm-hmm.
the film thought that we were both playing well, and we were sort of in match fit, as they say, and so we went into a studio in London, not Phil's studio, actually, another one, and just spent a day or two. Paul Thompson came down from the north of England and did some drums, and that was it. But only really a couple of days in the studio.
Hmm. It's very inspiring as an outsider to see how long you and Phil have worked together because not just Roxy Music, not just AMPM, Explorers, the symphonic album a couple of years ago. Were you always that close, or is that a relationship that evolved into closeness over the years?
Well, we weren't friends before the band started, so it wasn't like one of those bands where we all lived in the same street or something. Phil came into my life sort of through auditioning when we were when Brian and I were looking for a guitarist along with Graham Simpson, who was the original bass player and the original member. Um, and But once we got started, once the band proper really started in early 1972 when we went in straight into the studio in London to start recording the Roxy Music album.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, we've been friends and colleagues ever since. We don't live next door to each other. We see each other every year here and there. If we're working together, it's always very pleasant. Yeah.
I say that that's the exact opposite of a lot of my favorite other bands, where say the Police, you know that they're not getting together
Mhm.
until there's a tour. They're not hanging out until they have to be in the same place. So it is inspiring to see the guys who are friends who have made it work in a variety of genres and projects for 50 plus years. So there was no group therapy for you and Phil, I take it.
No, it's not. I think we've always, yeah, I mean, we got on well. I got on very well with Eno. We used to spend a lot of time together in the couple of years that he was with the band, and we did some of the early touring, which was the old rock and roll sort of traveling a lot and staying in not very good hotels and sharing rooms and so on. So that was we did a bit of that. Brian Ferry and I were very good friends. We shared a house together in London in the early days of the band. And as I say, we don't, we don't see each other every week, but I think that means when we do get together, we get on. I mean, we have a sort of English sort of, I don't know what it is, probably just politeness. We sort of, when we're working together, we get on, because really, arguing and whatever is just not our style.
It's not an option. Well, if I can keep the compliments coming here, I admire the many chances that you personally have taken over the years. And a lot of people, a lot of people who are inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's the first credit that you use when you're describing them. But in your case, obviously Roxy Music and all the side projects with Phil, but composing, being a professor, being a sideman and guest appearances, etc. What you're doing now, was that the long-term goal, or is it just an accident that you're this guy who works on a lot of different things?
I think I've always been something of a kind of dilettante, and I've never found it easy to settle down and be absolutely focused on one thing for a long time. I know some people, all they ever want to do is play the guitar, or all they ever want to do is write books or whatever. I've always felt, I could never quite make my mind up about whether I wanted to be a classical musician initially, and then did I want to be a rock and roll player? Then did I want to be a musician all the time anyway? Is that something? Do you want to also spend some time on other things? So it suited me. The music business has been kind to me in that, we had this early success, and then I was able to pursue other things. Quite some of my solo projects have been, in a way, personal projects for me, because they've not been big commercial successes. I mean, I had a big commercial success with a program called Rock Follies, which I don't think was quite so well known in the States, it was on a television program. It was on PBS, but here it was a big hit program back in 1977. Two series of 6 episodes each, and I wrote 50 odd songs for that, and we had a #1 album or two chart albums. And that this year that was transferred to a stage show, Rock Follies, the musical, which ran for a trial period out of London, in a place called Chichester Festival Theatre, to great reviews and fantastic audiences. And so that's currently undergoing a few small revisions and looking for a theatre in London next week. So I mean, next year rather. So that will be a project that there's something that came back after 40 years, and was a great pleasure to revisit, and to have a sort of a lot of a young, energetic cast working on stuff that I'd done when I was young and energetic. But
now that's definitely exciting to be happening. And
yeah.
That leads into something that I'm very curious about, and I think I know the answer to this. Your successes were different in every territory, commercially speaking, correct? Meaning the hit songs were not the same everywhere. The size of the venues were different territory to territory, and there was a lot of one-off projects that were specific to different territories, correct?
Yes, and I think that we expected, well, particularly Brian, I think, expected a different reaction in the United States or in North America to what we were doing. I think he felt that around the time of the Manifesto album, particularly, and Siren to some extent, we were working in America. We recorded half the album in New York. We then Avalon, we recorded it in the Bahamas, and then mixed it in America, in the United States. But I don't think really we were making mainstream North American music. We actually were still seen more as some sort of cult band. I mean, Avalon, I know, was the record that people know best.
Right.
But we never had a massive hit single in America. and we had, great reactions in Europe, to most of what we did, very, very strong in Australia. Japan was quite a good territory for us. But I think, I don't know, I think sometimes you think you're doing something for a particular audience that actually turns out is appreciated by someone else, So, I mean, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't think about it too much, perhaps.
But even if it's questionable how successful you were in North America, well, you're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you played Madison Square Garden within the last 5 years.
Well, that was a huge pleasure. I have to say that last tour, which was, basically we did 13 shows, but it was 10 of them were in America and Canada. And that was a great sort of, in a way, an unexpected sort of final reward for us, because we'd always dreamed of doing that, and we played plenty of times. We played, we had a lot of following in certainly in the Midwest around Cleveland and Chicago, and we New York and Los Angeles, obviously. But it was very gratifying to play Texas, and where we'd been, I think, hadn't played in Austin since 1972 or 73 maybe, So and we had great audiences, so that was really very rewarding, and a very nice way to kind of round things off a bit.
Well, I have two more questions before I let you go, and sorry for the rude interruption right there. And the first one is, we've already talked about how the AM/PM record is new. There's the theatrical project that you're working on. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of downtime for you, but is there anything else coming up that we should be looking for?
Well, we're re-releasing a couple of things that were done a while ago. One was the Rock Symphony album that you mentioned, that was done along with a project of mine that was very dear to my heart called Three Psalms, which was a setting of psalms for a small orchestra and some electronic instruments and saxophone and a choir. And we had the orchestra and the choir for a small concert hall in the Arts Centre in London on the South Bank, the Queen Elizabeth Hall. And we needed something to fill the first half of the programme. So I said to the string arranger, a girl called Lucy Wilkins, who worked with us for a long time, and to Phil, well, why don't we use the orchestra and do some arrangements of Roxy songs and see how it goes? And actually, it was brilliant. I mean, the audience absolutely loved it. And we recorded that concert, which is the version that we're releasing. We didn't, it's ruinously expensive to use orchestras, as you probably know, even a nice one.
Yeah.
They're very happy to kind of not be as strict as some symphony players would be, but nevertheless, they need paying, and there's a lot of them. And so we've got that on film and on recorded, and also the Psalms were recorded separately, but there's a live version of that as well. So those are both going to be available, again, through Bob Frank and The Orchard, and also a record that we did in the 1980s of Christmas music, an instrumental album that I produced with Phil co-producing, which is also coming out again, which is another of our projects. So, these things are there for people. They can, it'll build up.
Yeah. Something old, something new, etc. We're glad to get.
I mean, one of the interesting things I think about Roxy is the sheer number of projects that the original 6 members have ended up with. I mean, Paul Graham, the bass player, is now dead, but between Eno and Brian and Phil and myself, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of albums, we're still going. I see Eno has a new project out. Brian is re-releasing some of his really nice solo stuff from the 90s and the 2000s that I wasn't so familiar with. So there's a lot out there, and I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame kind of reflected in a way that sort of influence that we'd had on partly on other musicians and on a lot of people that maybe punching a little bit above our weight in terms of actual platinum albums, but the audience were very kind to us.
The New York Dolls did not have platinum records, but the influence was there.
Yeah,
Todd
sure.
Rundgren had some of that, but the influence was there. So sometimes it's the megastars and sometimes it's the influence.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the last question, which is a stupid one before I let you go. So you have a last name that could be said a lot of different ways. Like the
Yeah.
punk rock icon is Ian Mackay.
Right.
How how is your last name said for the record? Because some people say McKay, some say Mackay.
No, we say Mackay. In Scotland, they say Mackay. I mean, I'm only of Scottish ancestry. I'm not Scottish really, but feel close to Scotland. But in Ireland, they say Mackay, and they spell it slightly differently. In Canada, they say Mackay, I think, and in the States, they tend to say Mackay.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they say in France.
As long as they call you by name, it's
Yeah,
fine and you'll answer it.
yeah, that's fine. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you for the many years of great music. Looking forward to what's to come and hope to see that musical of yours that's in development
Yeah,
when
yeah.
the time is right.
That'll be great. Thanks. Nice to talk to you.
Paltrocast.